Witajcie! Jest punkt 13 i to już jest czas, żeby zabrać Was w kolejną wirtualną podróż do Afryki, a konkretnie lecimy do południowej części Afryki, czyli do RPA. Tradycyjnie na początek chciałabym Was zapytać, czy nas widzicie i czy mnie dobrze słyszycie, bo goście na razie jeszcze nic nie mówią. Bardzo Was proszę, napiszcie w komentarzu, że dźwięk i widok jest ok, wtedy będziemy mogli zacząć. Czekamy zatem na Wasze komentarze. Widzę, że już kilka osób się połączyło, także proszę napiszcie w komentarzach, czy jest ok. Oczywiście one troszeczkę do nas później spływają, więc zawsze chwilę na nie czekamy, ale nie chcielibyśmy zacząć, zanim nie potwierdzicie w komentarzu, że jest ok, jeżeli chodzi o widok i jeżeli chodzi o dźwięk. Także czekamy na Wasze komentarze. Jeszcze chwilkę. Jest ok. Dzięki, Magda. Dostaliśmy potwierdzenie. Dziękuję, Justyna. Super, cieszę się, że nas widać i mnie słyszycie. Tak jak powiedziałam na wstępie, zapraszamy Was na kolejną wirtualną podróż, czyli online'owym zwiedzaniu różnych zakątków świata. W trakcie wirtualnych podróży, jak wiecie, łączymy się z naszymi gośćmi z różnych miejsc na świecie. Goście opowiadają o tym miejscu, ponieważ tam po prostu mieszkają i jednocześnie kawałek pokazują tego miejsca, ponieważ nie są w stanie pokazać więcej przez godzinę niż kawałek. Także dzisiaj lądujemy w RPA. Ja nazywam się Elwira Urbańczyk i reprezentuję firmę Make Break, w której zajmujemy się przygotowywaniem wyjazdów szytych na miarę, tak szeroko rozumianych. Tworzymy programy dla klientów indywidualnych i pod klienta biznesowego w postaci wyjazdów motywacyjnych incentive, jak również tworzymy różnego rodzaju konferencje, eventy, także w formie online. A teraz chciałabym Wam serdecznie przedstawić naszych dzisiejszych gości w ramach wirtualnych podróży, którymi będą, jak widzicie, dwie osoby, Francis and Nick. Hello guys, how are you?
Hello, thank you very much.
Please introduce yourself, where you are, who you are, please say something about you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. We're delighted to be here, and thank you to Elvira for asking us to join this. I think it's a lovely idea, and we're delighted to be partnering with Make Break. My name is Nick Buckland. I'm the owner of Into Africa. We're a destination management company which has been in operation since 1991. We're based in Cape Town. And we operate in Southern Africa. So it's not just South Africa. We also operate in Namibia, in Botswana, in Zimbabwe, and in Zambia, and in Mozambique, and then also in Swaziland and Lesotho as well. I'd like to, Francis, you're going to say a few words?
Yes, hi, thank you very much. Lovely to be a part of this this online virtual tour of our country. So I have worked closely with Nick for over 16 years. We've got two main divisions in the company, leisure division, which I head up, and then my colleague Alex heads up the incentive side. And we are based in Cape Town, which you couldn't get a better view than this. We're very lucky.
Exactly, where you are and what the great view is behind you, which we can see now.
Yes, just a little bit more on there is that I think I should just stress that Francis, who heads up our leisure division, and Alex, who heads up our MICE division, are also our shareholders in our business. And we're very much a hands-on owner-managed business, and we consider ourselves very boutique. So what we do is we actually design itineraries specifically to match your needs. I think that's very important. We're not a kind of a mass market factory operation. We're very much boutique, looking to hear what you need and what you want to see in Southern Africa, and then design itineraries, whether it's on the leisure side or on the MICE side, to meet your specific needs. Just a little bit more in terms of our background. I should stress, we're in the middle of winter, and this is what we have to put up. Personally, I've been living in Cape Town since almost 30 years, but and I think the winter days are our nicest days. We have beautiful temperatures. It is our rainy season in winter, but what that means is it clears the air, everything glistens, and it's just, you can enjoy the sunshine in summer, sometimes for us, it gets quite hot. So we actually look for shade rather than to sit in the sun. Right now, we can go out and we can actually enjoy the sun. So it's a beautiful time of year. But I think from your perspective, you're probably more likely to want to come down here in the Polish winter, opposite seasons, obviously, and enjoy our summer. We're kind of still in the grips of this COVID pandemic, and we're in level 3 of 5 stages, so we're still quite severely locked down. Otherwise, we would probably want to be able to run around Cape Town and show you more of the city. But we're fortunate enough to have this view of the iconic Table Mountain behind us. If I just move my head a little bit away, maybe you can see more of the view. And you can also pick up Devil's Peak there. Cape Town's a real draw card for visitors. It's one of those things you have to do. It's one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. The top of the mountain there is just over 1,000 meters, 1086. The cable car takes you up there in just 2 minutes, and it's stupendous views from there. And also there's hikes up there as well. So it just offers so much. You can probably just pick up the suburbs below Table Mountain. Devil's Peak behind Francis's Head, if you just duck a little bit, and you can see Devil's Peak there. That runs around and forms a bowl, and then behind us, we have Lion's Head and Signal Hill. And it forms kind of a natural cup, which leads into the city, and we call that the City Bowl. So we're in the suburbs of the City Bowl, looking down into the city center. I'm not going to fiddle with the camera and the laptop position here because we might not get back to where we just want to be. But if I just move the camera slightly, you'd see the city center and then Table Bay. And the reason I stress that is because although Cape Town is a city of about 4 million people, it's made up of little pockets between the mountain and the sea. So you never feel like you're in a huge city, but you have all the advantages of being in a city. So we have wonderful hotels, we have great restaurants, and we have great nightlife. So if you're visiting Cape Town, you've got all the advantages of a city, fantastic cuisine, really super hotels, the whole V&A waterfront, which is a stone's throw from here now, wonderful to visit. But you also are surrounded by nature. And because although it's the city of 4 million people, you can get out of it quickly. Out of traffic hours, I can be at the airport in 20 minutes. So from where we're sitting now, I can be on a beautiful beach in 10 minutes. I can be in the waterfront in 10 minutes. I can be in a wilderness area on the mountain in 15 minutes. So it's all so wonderfully accessible. And I think our office is down, again, a stone's throw away. I can walk to the office in half an hour from here. It's on a street called Bree Street, which is kind of like a gourmet street, but an unusual gourmet street in Cape Town. We'll talk a little bit about safety later on, but you can walk in the city center of Cape Town, and there's wonderful restaurants, there's wonderful bars, there's wonderful coffee shops, there's wonderful little theaters. So you have all that, but you also have the outdoors. And I think people, when you live in Cape Town and when you visit Cape Town, it's about nature. The city is dominated by the mountain. We're surrounded by the ocean. So whether you want to hike or whether you want to jog or whether you want to trail run or you want to mountain bike or just road bike, or you want to be on the ocean surfing or kayaking or just boating, sailing, it's all out there for us. We have great golf courses. People living here live for the outdoors because we have this fantastic climate, and we have the beauty of nature around us. I think a visitor to South Africa is really coming here for the nature. And I think Cape Town is such a natural city that I include Cape Town in that, coming here for nature.
I was a little surprised, as you say, that Cape Town is a more natural city, because I was thinking I know that there is a beach, there is a mountains, but I was thinking that like in Warsaw, we live in a big city. So I was thinking like the same, but you say that you can go by 10 minutes to the beach, 10 minutes or 15 minutes to your office in the city. You have a mountain close to the area. So it's really nice place to go and stay longer than like 2 days, I suppose.
Oh,
absolutely. 2 days is not enough in Cape Town.
You could spend a week, 2 weeks here, and you're doing different things every day. Every day, yeah.
I said you before that I am jealous of the view
Half
from.
an hour I can be in the vineyard, tasting beautiful wine.
Yeah, we will
So-
come back to the wine for sure. I told you
We live
before
in a
that I
beautiful
am
place.
jealous of the view from your apartment that you have, because it's really, really nice. And now I'm jealous more because you said me that you have 10 minutes to go to the beach. And this is your winter. In our winter, we have sometimes -20, and not like sun. And I can still on winter, you can go to the beach, or it will be like not very big temperature at that time.
Well, I mean, I think today is a winter's day. Okay, we have had some amazing winter's day this last week. 2 weeks ago, we had a massive storm in Cape Town, so we got a lot of rainfall. But this last week's been fantastic. Today, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's about 20 degrees today.
I would think it's more, maybe 22, yeah.
There we go, for winter.
Winter, okay. We have also can have also 20, but minus. This is the
Yes,
small difference.
exactly. That's a small difference between our two countries.
Huge. Okay. So according to weather, when is the best time to visit South Africa or Cape Town? We need to maybe divide it for the part, or what you can recommend?
You know, South Africa is actually an all year round destination. I like to explain the South African landscape as if you take a breakfast bowl and you turn it upside down. You can literally see the low-lying areas in the coastal regions, and then at the top of your breakfast bowl is the high altitude areas. So you find that our winter is basically from May to August, summer September to April. It's actually why I explain the whole breakfast bowl is that the high altitude areas of, say, Johannesburg and your Kruger National Park, which I'm sure everybody has heard about, one of the most well-known and most famous areas to go on safari in South Africa, that will get your summer rainfall. So a lot of people get confused because you get your summer rainfall in the Johannesburg, Kruger National Park areas, but in Cape Town, you'll get your winter rainfall. So it's actually the best time to go on safari in winter because you have these hot, dry days where the vegetation is lower, so the animal sightings are better. The animals are congregating more around the watering holes because it's dry. And then you come down to Cape Town and it will be colder. You may have some rain, but then you could also be lucky and have a week like we're having today, which is just absolutely perfect. Even better, less crowded on the beaches. And you've also got, you don't have that high heat of 30 to 35 degrees Celsius.
So whole year we can came to South Africa and visit some places. And during our winter, is it okay to go to Kruger National Park? So like from November till February?
Yes. So it will be hot and quite muggy weather, and your afternoon rainfalls, which are actually, it's very dramatic. You can basically smell and hear the rain and the thunderclouds coming. And you normally find that there's a heavy downpour in the afternoons. And that's when you're back at the lodge after your, morning drive and you're almost about to go off on your afternoon drive. And you get these thunderstorms that are, even as a South African, I still find them totally dramatic. And they're over and done with pretty quickly. You'll find, it's maybe about half an hour maximum to an hour that you might be inside, and the rest is going to be the hot and dry day.
So it will be a good time also to see more animals, or more animals we can see during the winter time when it's more dry?
The one thing about the summertime for the safari is that the vegetation is higher because they've had they've had that summer rainfall. So the vegetation is higher, so the grasses are higher. So if you're looking for the lions and the leopards, it's going to be a little bit harder than if you came in our winter time, where it's been dry and hot and dry. So they haven't had the rainfall. The grasslands they're not as high. So the viewings are slightly better. So I would say from about April, May, and June, July, it's great. And obviously in September, it's great because it's our springtime. So you'll see all the babies that are basically being born.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do a combination of Cape Town and safari, the best is really to pick the shoulder months, because then you can get the best of Cape Town and the best of the safari. And also the advantage of that is sometimes you get the best of the rates as well. So it's kind of, it's not a bad idea. But I think kind of a big driver, if you're coming from Poland, is to avoid the minus 20-degree winters and actually come down here for the summer. So it is a year-round destination. And I think, you know, you can go on safari and have a wonderful time in the rainy season in our summer. And I think the bush looks nicer for having had the rain because it's lush. And it's when you see the animals against that backdrop, it's actually nicer than seeing them against kind of a very dry, not barren, but harsh backdrop.
And also keep in mind, if safari is the key element in an itinerary, which majority of the time it is, there are a lot of reserves around South Africa. So it really depends on what time of the year you're going that your consultant will say, well, you know, are you looking for malaria-free areas, especially if you've got children? Is it a, you know, honeymoon couple? Is it large family groups? Where are you wanting to go? How long do you have? What your budget is? And then you can choose different areas of, you know, which lodge and which reserve to send them to, depending on where the weather, you know, what time of the year it is.
Okay, so you say that there are a lot of national parks, which you can recommend also for a malaria-free or from different kind of things. Which park you can recommend?
I think the number one park that's most well known and we would say is that on top of our list is Kruger National Park. It's actually the size, similar size to Israel. It has a lot of private lodges. It has private concessions, part of the Kruger, and so it suits all budgets. It is going to be about a 5-hour drive from Johannesburg. So if you've got the time, you can drive 5 hours and maybe add on some extra nights in the panoramic route and view the Blythe River Canyon, Guard's Window, and then spend, I would say, at least minimum 3 nights on a safari. That gives you at least 2 full days to enjoy the morning drives and the evening drives and just to sit back and relax as well. So you've got the Kruger National Park, which is going to be your malaria area. Then malaria-free, there's the Pilanesberg National Park, which is a 2-hour drive away from Johannesburg. So that's very convenient. And then right pretty close to it is Madikwe, which is one of my favorite. Excellent sightings for wild dog. And that being malaria-free, you can drive from Johannesburg. The roads aren't great though. So we do recommend that you take a light aircraft flight. So you could be in a 6-seater or a 12-seater aircraft. It's a 1-hour flight from Johannesburg. Pilanesberg, you would drive. It's not a problem. Those roads are very, very good. And it's a straight through freeway to the park. Just going back to Kruger National Park, you can also fly into Kruger, which is a 1-hour flight. There are very good connections into Kruger from Johannesburg on bigger aircrafts. So it's normal. You could basically fly in on an international flight and connect straight through to Kruger and be at a lodge for lunchtime. And then there are also direct flights from Kruger into Cape Town, which makes it a very convenient combination for anybody traveling to South Africa to do a safari and a Cape Town stay.
Are there any national parks which are close to Cape Town?
Yes, there are. They actually, some are located, I would say the ones that I would recommend are located a good 3-4 hours drive out of Cape Town. It's more along the garden route. It's a very different type of landscape, beautiful landscape, but it's part of the Karoo. So you get very low shrubs. A lot of it is reclaimed farmland. So if somebody's looking for that authentic safari destination, like a Kruger National, you've got to explain it carefully and just say it's, you know, that it's part of a larger area of reclaimed farmlands. There are big 5 animals. I think I mean, it's still a very good experience, make no mistake. And there are some fantastic reserves. It's just vegetation's very different. It's a different kind of safari feel to it. So it really depends if somebody's been to East Africa and now they want to come to South Africa and see what we have to offer. You've got to pick the right safari location for them.
I see. Are there any planes from Cape Town to Kruger National Park as well as from Johannesburg?
Yes. There's fantastic. What's one thing about South Africa, I should say, is that the international hubs, you've got Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Durban, and then domestic flights, very, very good connection. So there are direct flights from Cape Town into Nelspruit Airport, which is south of Kruger, and then you've also got going into Skukuza and Hoedspruit, which are more in the middle of the Kruger National Park. So depending on where your lodge is, you can definitely fly direct from Cape Town, which is about a 2-hour, 40-minute flight. One thing to remember with the flights, if you're taking a light aircraft flight or if you're taking one of those domestic flights direct, is your luggage allowance. So often guests say to us, or even incentive groups, leisure groups say, should we start with safari and then end in Cape Town or vice versa? I always say it depends on how much you want to shop. Because if you want to shop a lot at the end, if you want to shop a lot, then rather finish off in Cape Town. Rather finish off where you can fill your bags with all the curios that you want and some wine. And if you're not too interested in that, then of course finishing off on safari is a fantastic way to end off a holiday and just be relaxed after a busy couple of days in the cities because of the luggage restriction.
I can totally agree with you, because I remember when I travel and, for example, I start my shopping at the beginning. So after that, I need to carry this shopping for whole my 2.5 weeks trip. I remember it exactly. So I put the destination for shopping at the end of my trip because it is easier.
That's right.
I think, can I just, while we're talking about safari, I think what's quite important is to explain the difference between going to a national park and staying in a private safari lodge, because they're kind of you're seeing the same animals, but it's how you see them is a little bit different. So when Francis talks about the Kruger National Park, I mean, it's a vast park, vast sort of ecosystem, and adjacent to it, we have a lot of private reserves, and that's where some of the best lodges are. So you get lodges like Sabi Sabi and Londolozi and Singita, and these are all the top lodges. When you stay at a private safari lodge, you have a more intense experience and a more intimate experience, because there's less people in that space, and all the game viewings are kind of like they limit the number of vehicles which will be at a game viewing. So if you see a Pride of Lions, they might only allow 2 game vehicles to have visual access of those lions. You can drive off road to get closer to the lions. You can drive at night, so you have a more kind of intense, more intimate experience when you go to a private lodge. And you might be able to just do 2 nights there and get 4 game drives. The pattern of the day is that you get up at sunrise, so that's the best time to see the animals. So you're out you're out in your game drive as the sun is rising. You spend 3 or 4 hours in the reserve and come back for a late breakfast, and then you'll go out again about 4 o'clock and then drive into the early evening. So when you're driving in the early evening, you start to pick up some of the night animals. It might be a better time to catch leopard, and then you'll come back to the lodge, and you might have an outdoor eating experience. You might have a bush dinner. You might have just dinner in a beautiful restaurant. So that's a kind of your rest time is in the middle of the day there. If you're going into a national park, then you're driving in a park where there's maybe a lot of other vehicles. If you see a Pride of Lions, there might be 10 vehicles there. So it's a kind of a different kind of experience. And because you can't drive off road, and perhaps you're driving yourself, you might need more time to get the same depth of animal experience. So it's quite important to remember whether you're at a private lodge or in a national park. And they're kind of hybrids on that. And when Francis was talking about Madikwe, that's a national park, but it's only got private lodges in it. So it's actually a nice hybrid and a very good non-malaria experience to have. And then the other area we haven't talked about was the Eastern Cape. So you can from Cape Town to Port Elizabeth is an 800-kilometer drive along the coast, taking in the garden route. So if it's for self-drive, and it's a beautiful country to self-drive, you can start in Cape Town, drive along the garden route, finish up in the Eastern Cape, and actually go to a lodge there, which is also malaria-free.
It's good to know, because sometimes my clients, the families, when they want to go to Africa, when they want to see the safari and have an experience, they are either afraid when they travel with small children because they don't want to give them pills, etc. So this is good that you are talking about. And I was surprised. One thing you said, Francis, about that there are some airports inside the parks, etc. I heard that in South Africa there is more than 560 airports, and I was really surprised with this information. I think they calculate the small one in the middle of the private one, yes, in a park, etc. Yeah, it's not like international for sure.
Yes, it's the landing strips into the different reserves and the farms, the farmers. So into the different reserves, and most of the lodges have got their own airstrips as well. So yes, that could be a very accurate figure. That. Just going back to the families and on safari. Also bear in mind that a lot of the lodges have the most incredible junior ranger programs. So families on safaris that's just taken off, and especially during all the lockdowns, we have seen a huge increase in inquiries for families wanting to go on safari now, because the kids have been at home watching live safari streams and getting to know the animals, and suddenly Mom and Dad, we want to go to South Africa for our next holiday, which is fantastic news for us. So please just keep it in mind. We've had families that have gone on holiday and the parents say, I wish I could have seen my children more, because they were just constantly out on the game drive vehicle with the ranger, which is kind of music to, I'm sure, many parents' ears when they're wanting a break.
I think the magic age from a family safari is the kids should really be older than 6, because once they're over 6, they can go out on a game drive. It's kind of kids younger than 6. They're not going to be allowed to go out on a game drive, because they're not controllable, I suppose. In terms of they might start crying, and then that attracts the animals. And you don't.
Yeah. It's also to do with going into a sighting. So if it's one of the big 5 sightings, so if it's an elephant or leopard and the child just suddenly reacts, it can cause quite a big reaction in a herd of elephants. The sound is just.
And it's also in fairness to other people who might be on the game drive vehicle. Yeah.
It's great that you give this experience and information about the possibility for trips with family, because after everybody are locked down and staying home, they feel like Francis said, we want to go somewhere and live for a little time, the children, and get some rest for sure also, because they stay a long time in home with them. So, yeah. And I would like, yeah?
Can I just say something on that? I think as a parent, it's sometimes if you often, and you've got kids, say, between the ages of 6 and 12 or something like that, and you often end up doing something to keep them happy, because if they're happy, then you're happy, but you're not necessarily doing what you want to do. And I think the wonderful thing about a safari is it's something that everybody enjoys. And to have an activity like that or an experience like that, which you're all loving, it's just, it's such a good family experience. And I think coupled with that is that we've all gone through this, and we're still going through this lockdown period. And I think when travel does come again, I think a safari is a wonderful thing to do, because it's, rather than going to a crowded city, you're going to the outdoors, and you're going to an area which is still relatively locked down, but you're going to be you're getting fresh air all the time, you're engaging with nature. And I think that's a perfect antidote, if you like, to the lockdown. So we think we can't wait to go. Yeah.
I totally agree with the sentence that everybody will love safari, and I'm sure for that. I don't know anybody that said me, oh no, safari, it wasn't interesting. It's impossible. You can see the nature, you can see the animal on their natural environment, not in the zoo. So it's like a different experience, and I think that everybody needs to get this experience in their life for sure. And
I'm often asked what's my favorite safari experience, and they're all so different. So when we get a request that comes in for a safari, we will ask a lot of questions, and it'll be about budget, and it'll be about malaria and traveling times and national parks or private. And, we'll ask a lot of questions so that we can suggest the right lodge for your clients. Yeah.
Thank you. Can you say something general about South Africa? Because you have really interesting history, I think. So can you say something general about this?
I can give you a kind of very potted history, because otherwise we could spend an hour just talking about the history. But and it's kind of a history comes really from a couple of angles, because I mean, what I'll do is I'll start with kind of Europeans coming to South Africa, which is a very European-centric view of the history. But the first Europeans to sail around these waters came in the late 1400s, and those were the Portuguese. Vasco da Gama and Bartholomew Diaz, both kind of rounded the Cape late 1400s. But it was the Dutch who first settled here in Cape Town in 1652. And they needed Cape Town really as a refueling stop for their ships that were sailing around to the Dutch East Indies. So that they wanted no more. They weren't looking to go into the hinterland and to colonize South Africa. They actually just wanted to have a stop off for their ships. You can't really see it, but down below us, there's the Parliament is there, and there's some beautiful gardens next to Parliament. And the Parliament Gardens were actually the original farms, if you like. That's where the Dutch were growing vegetables for the ships that were coming through here. So we kind of got that aspect to our history. The Dutch also brought slaves back from Malaysia to work for them here in Cape Town. And we have we're kind of known as the Rainbow Nation. So we got so many different kind of genetic makeups of us, cultures coming through. It's a real mix.
They don't call us the Rainbow Nation for nothing.
And the Cape Malays is a fascinating part of Cape Town. And again, if I could just swing the camera around, you'll see a little area called the Bow Carp, and they have very colorful houses there. And one of the reasons the houses are colored is that when the slaves became free men, they were allowed to paint their house. So you have these beautiful colors through. It's very, very distinctive, lovely area of Cape Town to go to. And it's also very much predominantly Muslim. So you'll get mosques down there, and you hear the sound of the mosque coming through as well. And they bring in a style of cooking, the Cape Malay cooking, which is slightly spicy, coming through to add to our culinary mix. So this was the Dutch and the Cape Malay influence coming into Cape Town. And then in about 1800s, the British started getting interested, and they came in into quite large swathes of South Africa. And there was a kind of a little conflict with the Dutch going on, and there was a big trek of the Dutch, or the Boers, the descendants of the Dutch, who moved up into the Highveld, which Francis has alluded to, and settled in areas like the Orange Free State and the Transvaal. Part of that colonization process was that the British ended up having wars with the Zulu nation. And there's one of the most fascinating things you can do in South Africa is go to one of the battlefields where the Zulus, an African nation, actually took on the British with their modern rifles and defeated them there was a massacre at a place called Isandlwana in KwaZulu-Natal. And you can still go to that battlefield site. It's not been developed at all, and you can hear historians talking about the history of that battle, and then how the British fought back at a place called Rorke's Drift, where 11 Victoria Crosses were awarded. And it's the most fascinating story to go to hear, and highly recommended if you've got any interest in history. Then I guess, I don't know what I was going to say, unfortunately, but gold and diamonds were discovered in South Africa, and this made the British more interested in moving into the hinterland and more conflict with the Boers, and it ended up in a war in about 1900 between the Boer War between the Boers and the British, which ran for about 3 years. Never really kind of, I think the British ostensibly won, but I think the Boers end up coming out as the winners, because in 1912 the Union of South Africa was formed, and the Afrikaans leaders came through after that. I think probably the stigma on South Africa's history is the apartheid period, which came about after the National Party came into power in 1948, and it kind of ran through until Mandela was released, and the ANC then came into power in 1994. And I think if you're visiting Cape Town, most people will want to go to visit Robben Island, which is the prison where a lot of the ANC prisoners were kept during this period. I mean, Mandela was in prison for 27 years, and I think, was it about
19 of those years were spent on Robben Island.
So you can go to that prison and you can see his cell. I think for visitors to South Africa, Mandela remains kind of like an icon, like like Table Mountain is, and people want to learn about Mandela. You can go to his capture site in Howick in KwaZulu-Natal. You can go to the Transkei and visit the place where he was born. You can go to places like Robben Island. You know, he comes through very strongly in a visit to South Africa. And then, you know, we've had 25 years, 26 years now since the rebirth of South Africa, if you like, and to have a real democracy, and we're delighted for that. I think from a history perspective, again, I wish I could move this camera a little bit now, but you can see like part of the legacy of apartheid is that we had forced clearances of certain areas, and there's an area in Cape Town called District 6 where people were forced to move out into what we call the Cape Flats, and there's a lot of history there. So typically, if you could spend a day in Cape Town visiting Robben Island, going to the Boat Carp, going to District 6, going out into townships, and kind of understanding the more recent history of South Africa. Yeah.
The township tour is actually extremely popular with our leisure groups and our incentives. So a typical day would be going out there, you get involved with community visits, visiting the schools as well, and just getting a feel for the other side of Cape Town. You know, it's not just the city bowl to explore. You just drive 20 minutes out of the city and you're in a township, and you can have a most delicious meal, you know, in somebody's home. So it's extremely popular, and we like to include it in all our programs so that everybody gets an idea of, you know, how Cape Townians, as we are known as, are living.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you said about the history, and I think, as you said, it should be a part of the trip to South Africa, to Cape Town, to get in touch with the part of the history as Robben Island, or go to the school, as you said. I really like this thing to put in my itinerary for clients, also for especially I think for the incentive clients, because I'm looking for some unusual experience, but the real experience in the place where I'm sending the clients, and I know they like it. But even if the individual clients are going to South Africa, I think they know some history about Mandela, about like history of South Africa, and they are interested in. So, as you said, it's a good thing to put in the itinerary, like a must not must see, but must touch. I can say something like that.
Absolutely.
How big?
I was going to say, just to stress the Rainbow Nation again. We have 11 official languages in South Africa, and we even have a 12th, which is sign language. So, you know, that just says the mix of peoples and backgrounds that we have, and also because of we've got a population here now of about 58 million people.
Great.
Yeah. So and because of the kind of the potted history where we had different states that came together, we actually have kind of 3 capitals, which is a little unusual as well. So Cape Town, where we're sitting now, we have Parliament. Up in Pretoria, which is probably the main capital, we have the administration of the government. And in Bloemfontein, we have the judicial capital. And that was kind of as all these different states came together to form South Africa, the different cities were kind of allocated a role. So that's all little part of the history.
11 languages. I wanted to ask about that. And how many people live in South Africa? What big is the population around?
The population was just under 60 million. So we're about 58 million population. And Cape Town itself is about 4.5 million. But
still 11 official languages is like...
Yeah, if you go to court and you can want to be heard in your language. So the original people in Cape Town when the Dutch came here were the Khoisan, strandlopers, and you could still have that. You could still be heard in court in that language if you need to be. bits.
I think all of it is according the history, yeah? And this is why I know. Okay, please say which places in South Africa you can recommend clients for travel for 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks around.
Again, it really depends on budget. It depends on if it's a family, if it's a honeymoon couple. But I would say the most popular is going to be flying into something like Johannesburg, connecting, or maybe staying 1 or 2 nights in Johannesburg, exploring some of those Mandela sites, going into Soweto, go have a local beer in Vilakazi Street in Soweto, which is one of the biggest townships, and then connecting onto a safari destination. So again, whether you finish off safari or whether you start with safari, it's entirely up to you and how much you want to shop at the end. So heading onto a safari, and like I said, I would give it at least a minimum 3-night stay, please. It's really going to just allow you some extra time just to have some downtime at the lodge and really enjoy the lodge facilities, as well as going out on those early morning game drives and late evenings. And then coming down to I think I'm quite biased when I talk about my city, but in Cape Town, you can spend at least minimum 6 nights here, taking in the city, heading down to Cape Point, the peninsula. A lot of people I might as well stick on this topic, because a lot of people say, oh, Cape Point, that's where the 2 oceans meet. Don't get confused. It's not where the 2 oceans meet. Yes, we are on the bottom of the African continent, but it's actually Cape Agulhas, which is about a 3-hour drive away from Cape Town, where the actual most southernmost tip of Africa is. But Cape Point is one of the most popular. It's about an hour's drive from the city, absolutely stunning drive along the coastline down to the reserve. Then you've got your winelands, and you want to spend time out in the winelands. You can, of course, spend a whole day on a day tour. I would definitely get a driver guide, because you do not want to be driving on that day. You want to be sitting back and relaxing and enjoying your wine. So definitely wanting to stay, I would say, minimum 2-3 nights out in the winelands. So keep Cape Town. A 2-night stay in the city is not going to be enough, unfortunately. You've also got Hermanus, which is just outside Cape Town, about a 2-hour drive, and there's the whale season. Whale season starts about end of July, so we're expecting the whales to arrive quite soon, staying until early November. And Hermanus is a beautiful town where you can literally sit and be having your lunch with a glass of wine, and the whales are literally coming up to the rocks, rubbing the barnacles off their backs. So, yeah, I would say those 2 areas. You've also got Durban. We mustn't miss out on Durban. Durban's an international airport, so it makes it really convenient. If you're looking for that beach holiday, I would say heading up towards Durban is going to be your best bet. You look at the coastline of South Africa, and we covered in a coastline, yet we don't have a lot of those white, calm beaches. We've also in Cape Town got the Atlantic Ocean, which is very cold. So you've got Camps Bay Beach, which is packed in summertime, but with a handful of people swimming, because your temperature is actually about 12 degrees.
17 high.
Yeah, about 12 degrees.
12, 17.
And then you're sitting out on the beach on a day where it's about 30, 35 degrees out on the sand. So Durban is fantastic, because you just drive about 2-3 hours north of Durban, and you've got excellent game reserves up there as well. And you carry on. If you're a scuba diver, you are going to go up to the Sodwana Bay area, and it's also easy access to get into Mozambique, where there are brilliant beach resorts there. So Durban is also very popular with the Drakensberg. If you go inland, where Nick was talking about the battlefields, if you go inland, you've got the Drakensberg mountain range and beautiful golf courses, hiking area. So Cape Town, Durban, Johannesburg, and Kruger, I would say, would be on the list. And the Garden Route. Yeah, Garden Route is very good for self-driving. The roads, freeways going up through the Garden Route, it's an easy access for self-drive. I think to get to the Garden Route from Cape Town, you're looking at about a 4 or 5 hour drive. It's an easy drive, but stops along the way are the best, because you're going to stay in these small towns and just explore more inland of Karoo, and then the coastline of Knysna and up to Port Elizabeth. So it's quite confusing, because 2 weeks I could fill very quickly for you. And don't forget the flight connections if you did want to spend a little bit of extra time and explore Victoria Falls, for instance. You can get direct flights from Cape Town or Johannesburg from Victoria Falls, as well as from Kruger, actually. Or you can go see some of the highest sand dunes in the world in Namibia, or go explore the Okavango Delta. So it's all accessible. So the more you stay, the better.
So now I get a feeling that I need to come for 2 months at least.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
That's
I mean,
it.
I think something we haven't talked about is the fact that we're in the same time zone as Poland, and that it's an
Yes.
overnight flight. So it's actually, although it's a long haul flight, it's a very easy flight because you don't have any jet lag, and you can just you come down overnight and you actually get off the plane fairly refreshed, actually, for a long flight like that, and you can hit the ground running.
And most of the flights are overnight. So you are landing, a lot of the international flights are landing at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. So you can be on a connecting flight into the reserves, or you can, like I said beforehand, you can be sitting at a reserve by lunchtime.
Yes, as you said, it's the same time, so no jet lag and anything like that.
I mean, we have people who come back, repeat visitors, and there's so much to see. So the immediate hits would be Cape Town, maybe the Garden Route, maybe the Kruger Park, but then they come back and then they want to go to KwaZulu-Natal, and then they come back again, and then they go to visit the Cedarburg Mountains, or they go up to the Orange River and Okrabis and Kalahari. You know, it's just that there's so much depth and there's so much to see. It's a big country.
I think a first-time visitor is going to do a safari in Cape Town.
Safari in Cape Town. And you, Francis, said about scuba diving. I heard that South Africa is popular for scuba diving with sharks in cages, but it's like for more tourists and something. I don't know what you can say about that. Cape Town, Durban, where is it?
Cape Town.
Well, you can probably scuba diving with sharks is better in Durban.
In Durban, yes.
But it's different sharks. The ones that you can scuba dive with. When you go for the great white, then you do that in Cape Town.
You want a
and
cage.
You're in a cage. So you're not strictly speaking scuba diving, but you're cage diving with the shark.
Cage diving, yeah, this is a good.
Yeah, with a great white then. But if you go to,
and that's with goggle and snorkel as well. So when you come down to Cape Town and you want to do the shark cage diving, which is going out from Gansbaai, which is remember I mentioned Hermanus, which is where the whales are. Gansbaai is about another 20-minute drive, just further up the coast, and that whole area is extremely popular for the great white shark. So you go into the cages with the your goggles and snorkels. So you do not need your scuba license. You can also do the shark cage diving from False Bay, which is a lot closer to the city.
it's more seasonal.
But it's more seasonal, exactly.
From March.
You're not always going to see the sharks, unfortunately. Whereas the others, there's quite a good chance of seeing them. But it is a full day trip, and you often have to leave at about 4 a.m. So a lot of people want to do it, and then the day before we say, great, you're going to be collected from your hotel at 4 a.m, and suddenly they back out because they don't want to get up that early because they've had a good time in the winelands the night before. But if you do, they come back extremely happy.
It's quite a hard day because you do start early. You've got the drive, you get on the boat, and you probably need seasickness tablets because the boat sits for maybe 2-3 hours while people rotate through the cage, and it's just bobbing up and down. So you might get seasick, and then you've got to repeat the whole journey back to Cape Town. And so it's kind of a hard day, but people come back and they have such big smiles on their face. They've seen the great white shark. They love it. It's an incredibly popular excursion to do.
I think it's part of the nature, or it's more for tourists. It's not natural anymore.
There's a lot of debate about that, whether it should be allowed, because they do come the water to attract the sharks. But the place where Francis talked about at Gansbaai, there's a little place called Seal Alley, where there's a big concentration of seals, and that's shark food. So they're there anyway. So it brings a big concentration of seals, of sharks. Yeah.
I see.
And a lot of the funds that get paid towards this shark cage diving is going back into research.
It's quite strictly controlled, and there are licenses for the number of boats that can go out. So it is well managed.
Mm-hmm. Are there any festivals inside I think they are for sure, that tourists can visit in South Africa or in Cape Town? That is the good time to travel there?
You know, Nick and I actually discussed this before we came online. There are a lot of festivals, but we can't pinpoint, you know, our top 5. I mean, there's wine festival, there's olive festivals, there's running events. You know, Cape Town hosts the biggest timed cycle event in the world. It's the Cape Town Cycle Tour. So there's a lot going on in the city. You know, there's concerts in Kirstenbosch Gardens, so there'll always be something on.
I have a jazz festival at the end of March. There's lots of food events. We're very foodie city, you know, food and wine, you know, that's a big thing. So there's lots of food and wine events happening. So there's we talked about the Cape Malays earlier, and they have a parade in Cape Town which is kind of like a festival as well, and it's quite kind of, it's not nowhere close to sort of the Rio Carnival or anything like that, but it's a kind of a tiny version of that. If you kind of, it's just curious if you want to witness it. And then there's lots of sporting events as well. So we always have a lot of fun when we have the Rugby Sevens coming here every year in December. That's a big party. The whole city goes and parties at the stadium. You know, it's the stadium that was built for the 2010 Soccer World Cup.
So you can say it almost whole year we can come and we will join to some festival, as I understand.
Find something, yeah, absolutely.
We'll find you a party, Elvira. We'll find you one.
Oh, yeah, this is what I'm looking for after this lockdown for sure.
Something we haven't talked about in terms of Cape Town is that it's the 6th floral kingdom in the world. So you know, there are a number of floral kingdoms around the world, and by far the smallest, by a long, long way, is this little strip of coast around the Western Cape, and it's the Fynbos area. So if you're interested in botany, it's a fascinating place to come to. And we have a botanical garden on the slopes of Table Mountain called Kirstenbosch, which is well worth a visit. And you'll see some unique, you know, flora there. But in the summer months, every Sunday, on the Sunday afternoon, early evening, they have a concert there, an outdoor concert, and that's kind of a mini festival that we enjoy going to. And some really quality entertainment as well. Sometimes international stars, sometimes local.
You said something about the wine and food, and that the Cape Town is popular because of that. I heard, and I tried, of course, the South African wine, and I think they are one of the best wine of the world. And why? Yeah, you agree. Yeah, I tried, and it's really, really delicious.
Good. I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, South Africa's, we have such a, because of our diverse culture, we've actually got such a huge, and one of your questions you asked beforehand was, you know, what food would you want to eat when you come to South Africa? Because of the Cape Malays, we've got the Cape Malay curries. Because of Durban, where there's a huge Indian population, we've got the hot Indian curries that you can enjoy. And then I don't think you're going to come to South Africa and not have a traditional braai, whether you're on safari or whether you...
A barbecue.
It's a braai, but it's a barbecue. But barbecues, I know for a lot of people, is on gas. I think if you cooked with gas in South Africa, your friends might tease you about it. So it's traditional wood fire, and you cooking your meat, it's salads, it's vegetables, it's your garlic bread, and of course your wine and some beer. So a braai in Cape Town has to be on your list to do and to enjoy when visiting. And then our wines, yes, we've got from Cape Town. Cape Town is really the wine area of South Africa. We have got Constantia, Stellenbosch, Franschhoek, and Paarl regions, which are all within 30 to 45 minutes drive out of the city. They are all very different in what they produce, and it's really to do with the soils.
Terroir.
The terroir, there we go. So if somebody's going to go on a wine tour, we always ask what kind of wines do they enjoy? Do they like the reds, the whites, the Chenin Blancs, the Sauvignon Blancs, so that we can make sure we're taking them to the right wine estate and the area. So, but one of our flagship wines is a red called the Pinotage. So if you see a South African Pinotage on your shelves, please do buy it and taste it and let us know. It is our flagship, and it's one of the most popular. You can only find it in South Africa.
I totally recommend it. We have some South African wines in our shops, in a bigger shop, in the winery shop. So I definitely recommend to try the wine. from this region.
The Chenin we produce here is probably one of the best Chenins you'll find in the world. So that's strongly recommended as well. But I think just to add to what Francis was saying about the wine is that I think what's slightly unusual about the South African estates is that they're very much boutique estates. They're not mass production. So when you go and visit an estate, they will produce maybe 8 or 9 different varietals. So you can go in there and you can taste maybe 3 or 4 different whites, including MCC. And then you can go on and have a similar number of red wines as well. So they're low volume, but crafted wines. Whereas if you go to other wine growing areas, they tend to just produce Chardonnay, or they just tend to produce with Pinot, and the kind of, but in larger volumes. Whereas our estates are very good winemakers, and they're improving in what they're doing all the time. And they're challenging each other, and we're getting some spectacular wines coming through.
And I think what's also interesting is that there are areas that we wouldn't have thought were going to be wine regions that are cropping up as well now. So you're tending to find there's some certain wine estates that are starting in the Johannesburg area, or the Garden Route area is also starting to blossom quite a bit. So, and it's interesting because the wines are going to taste different as you go along the coastline or inland.
And what about cuisine? Because, we are drinking wine and we want to eat something good. And Cape Town is also popular for the cuisine tours. I can say tours, yeah. So
we have a lot of award-winning restaurants, world-class restaurants. And Francis has talked a lot about the Cape Malay and the Bryflace and the Durban curries. But I think if you go into the winelands, it's one of my favorite areas to go and eat. And because you eat at lunchtime there, and you maybe al fresco, and you have just a beautiful salad, and the salad's just amazing. And that's a meal in itself. If you go to some of the restaurants around the coast in Cape Town, we have very good fish. Obviously, we're right on the ocean here, and the meals will be a lot of kind of Mediterranean style, fusion type meals. It's also got a great experience.
A lot of the fynbos infused into menus, as Nick was saying about the Floral Kingdom and the fynbos. A lot of that comes through, and a lot of the Cape Malay fynbos is all infused into the Cape Townians' menus.
Now I'm hungry because it's almost lunchtime, and I'm thinking about wine. I was thinking before because I know that the trip to South Africa, it's like in my mind a wine for sure. Can you say something about travel inside South Africa when we want to see some places? Should we use the planes, the domestic flights, or the car, or what buses? I don't think so, because it's a huge country. But what do you recommend?
Definitely, obviously, depending on how much time you have, what your budget is. But self-driving in certain areas is not a problem. There's good road infrastructure. I wouldn't take the public transport or the local trains. We do have some very luxurious trains like Rovos Rail and the Blue Train that you can enjoy a trip up to Johannesburg, down to Pretoria, or even up to Victoria Falls, for instance, on Rovos Rail is a three-night trip. So take your domestic flights, and in certain areas, definitely self-drive is absolutely fine.
Okay.
There is a lot to see, as we've talked about, and I think, for me personally, I think less is more. And I think if it's a first-time visit here, don't try and do it all. Just pick on a 2 or 3, 4 centers max and do it well, and then come back for the rest.
Yeah, it's true. It's impossible. If it's a huge country, it's impossible to visit. Okay, if you have like half year, 4 months, you can visit. But if you travel for 2 weeks, it's impossible, as you said. We need to choose the peaks and come back for next year, next month, and see more, I suppose.
Correct.
And when you organize the incentive trips, because for Poland is starting to be popular to take incentive group to South Africa, to Cape Town. So what things you can recommend for like 5 days? Stay in Cape Town and around, I think, and that's all.
Well, you do want to touch on the safari. I mean, I think the most popular incentive trips always have a, say, minimum 2 night stay safari, because I know timing is short. So we tend to do, if it's a one destination, of course, yes. And I'm not just being biased, but Cape Town gets chosen a lot. If you've got those extra nights, then it's a 2-night safari added on. Normally the safari is added on at the start, and then you can either charter a plane or you fly direct down to Cape Town. Once you're in Cape Town, it's most popular day trips would be going down to Cape Point, and we try and mix because it's an hour and a half, say, drive by coach down to Cape Point. We try and mix it up a bit so that you don't feel like you're on the usual tourist route. So you can go down by sidecars. You can go, in convertibles.
Harley Davidsons, helicopters.
You can go around the peninsula in a speedboat instead of actually going into the reserve. So you're seeing, as an incentive trip, you basically want to be able to do something that you're not going to be able to do, or that your friends haven't done it, even though they've been to Cape Town. You want to be able to tick that list saying, oh, but I did it a different way. Then you can fly back from Simonstown back to the waterfront in 20 minutes, saving time, again, with an incentive trip. So you've got the Cape Point, you've got your winelands, of course, spending a whole day out there. Again, you can do mountain biking from one estate to the next. You can go...
You can do a future food and wine tasting meal, lunch out there, which is just with a winemaker.
Picnics. Everybody gets a picnic and you just go relax out amongst the vineyards. And then obviously around Cape Town, you're going to do the city tour. You are definitely going to be heading up this mountain by going from the lower cable car up to the top. There are hikes that you can do. We've had some incentive groups that have said, well, there's going to be a morning group that hike up at the top and we'll meet the main group at the top at a certain time. You can have lunches up there in private areas.
We can semi-privatize the 12 Apostles Terrace at the top there and actually make a very special sort of welcome up there when you get to the top. So it's lovely to do. It's kind of doing much of what we talked about as a leisure person would do, but we kind of enhance it for the incentive.
So that your transfers are different. And,
And we privatize a restaurant or set up a private venue for a special dinner. It all depends on the numbers and how we do it.
Yeah, I totally understand, because as you said at the beginning, you do only tailor-made trips, and we also do only tailor-made trips. So it depends of the budget, of the time, of what the expectations are. So a lot of things that we can do everything, I suppose.
And with an incentive group, it also depends on the size. If you've got a fairly smaller incentive trip group, you can do winemaking. We did it as a company. We made our own wine. So a year later, we all got our bottles of red wine. So it's really, it depends on the size. It depends on the amount of time, the budget,
and the profile. I mean, we get young guys from the IT industry, and they're more interested in the nightlife in Cape Town, and you've got to drag them out of bed in the morning to go shark cage diving. So again, it's about listening to what the clients want. There's great nightlife if you want it, or some people are maybe perhaps a little bit older and they want to enjoy the fine dining and the fine wines
and the culture
and the experience. The landscapes, the beautiful vistas.
We also have incentive groups that come out and want to paint a classroom out in the township, or they do sports programs for a day. So I've had groups that we've gone to the township and done a short tour, but then played soccer with at the school with the children and mixed the teams up. And that's been the highlight of their trip, is, on a field outside Cape Town.
But I would say if you've got 5 nights, I would definitely recommend 2 nights on safari and 3 nights in Cape Town. That would be a fantastic program.
Yeah, I think the same. Dears, we are more than 1 hour now. I wanted to ask you only one last question about the safety, because there are some information that, some part of the South Africa cannot be safety, etc. But what you can say about that?
I think there's COVID safety, obviously, and we have a very strong government protocols as to how we meet and how we travel, and that's why we're still locked down. I mean, effectively, we can't leave the Western Cape at the moment because the COVID safety is very strict. And I think by the time you will be able to visit South Africa from Poland, we won't have to worry about that, because the international flights won't start coming back in until that one's cleared. But we do have, I think what's important to stress is that we have very good medical care. But what's important is that you do have medical insurance, because you want to go into the private hospitals and take advantage of that really good medical care if something does happen to you. Unfortunately, South Africa, on a sort of broader scale about security, South Africa does have some quite horrible crime stats. There's no hiding that. I think what's important is that to look into those crime stats and to know that they're quite regionalized or localized. So there are areas that we don't recommend that you go to. And that's the beauty, I think, to be working through a local partner down here, because we know where those areas are. As I talked earlier about the fact that we enjoy the CBD, the downtown area in Bree Street, for example. Our office is down there, and we walk around there quite freely. You know, it's not like we're walking around there kind of looking over our shoulder all the time. There are other areas where we wouldn't choose to go to. So it's actually about listening and taking advice. And also, it's like any place you visit in the world. You just got to be sensible. You don't go on a township tour with a big camera hanging around your neck and dripping with jewelry. Yeah. You know, it's just certain areas you're going to avoid, and you'll be fine. You know, if you end up 4 o'clock in the morning with having had too much to drink and you're down in there around the station, something might happen to you. But but that's like any city in the world. Let's just be sensible.
I would like to say exactly the same, that it's like all over the world. You need to be careful and have your eyes around you, and don't go to the place that the local people don't recommend you. And that it's like in Warsaw, in Poland, we have exactly the same. Yeah, I can say it. And in the whole big cities is the situation like this one. So I would like to say the same. Okay, dears, thank you very much for the meetings. I feel that every of us gets a lot of interesting information. I told you before that I had a plan to go to South Africa in May this year, but unfortunately because of COVID, I could not go. But now I'm sure I want to go there next year or at the end of this year. Let's see when it will be possible.
Well, you know where we are.
Yeah, well, I know where you are.
Thank you for this opportunity. Yeah, I mean, we've really enjoyed speaking to you all, and we've got a little toast for you. So we're going to...
Vodka from Poland! Wow!
So we're not supposed to be drinking during lockdown, but we're going to have a little toast to you to say thank you for giving us this chance to chat to you.
How you get the Polish vodka there?
We're resourceful.
Cheers! I don't have with me. I have only tea now, but I will drink after that. Na zdrowie, yeah.
Na zdrowie.
Supposed to down it or sip it?
No, we can sip it.
Sip it, thanks.
Thank you very much one more time for joining to our project. And I think that every of our audience from today want to go to South Africa and drink wine and bring you the Polish vodka.
Yes.
Perfect.
And when you see wine on your shelves in your shops at the moment, please buy.
Yes, please
Look
buy.
forward to welcoming you here.
Yeah, thank you very much one more time.
Thank you.
Kochani, dziękujemy Wam za obecność na dzisiejszych wirtualnych podróżach, w podróży do RPA. Mamy nadzieję, że Wam się podobało i że poczuliście jakby, że jest to kierunek, który będziecie chcieli odwiedzić, spróbować, skosztować wina z tych regionów, które możecie kupić również w Polsce, jak słyszeliście, i serdecznie Wam to polecam. Próbowałam i powiem Wam, że to jedno z najlepszych win. Dziękujemy za udział w kolejnych wirtualnych podróżach. Raz jeszcze zapraszamy Was oczywiście na kolejne. Wkrótce opublikujemy informacje o kolejnym wydarzeniu, o godzinie i dniu spotkania. A jeżeli pojawią się w Waszej głowie jakiekolwiek pytania odnośnie Południowej Afryki, oczywiście piszcie w komentarzach bądź wiadomości publicznej, wiadomości prywatnej, przepraszam. Na wszystkie na pewno odpowiemy. Pozdrawiamy Was serdecznie.